Hi, everyone. It's Karen with Front Row Seat. Welcome to the Author Advisor Team Call. The purpose of the call today is to get your ideal reader profile really clear before we start writing the book. So typically when I work one-on-one with clients, this is the first thing that I have them do. I mean, obviously I do the outline with them first, which if you attended our webinar, you already have. And secondly, I do this ideal reader profile. Now, the reason I do this is simply because we want to be really clear and specific before we ever get started about who is reading your book. Now, if you're in business, you know this is who is your target market, but I have amended it a little bit to try and help us really get clear about who your perfect reader is. So we want to do a clear profile and description. We want to be specific, and the clearer we can get about our target reader, the easier it is to write to them, the more your work will resonate with them, and typically the more copies of your book will sell. So we want to have as much detail as possible. Typically this takes anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. So you should have received your defining your ideal reader template. And what I'm going to ask is that you open that up and fill that out as we go through it. So this may seem a little counterintuitive, but what I'll say is it's pretty basic law of attraction stuff. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience, I say this all the time, of reading a book where you feel like that person is speaking directly to you, and that they've gotten in your head. So that's exactly what I want to create today is that experience, right? Where we've really taken the time to get to know what this reader is dealing with and what is having them pick up the book in the first place. So for the most part, they're dealing with something, right? So whatever their problem or pain point is, there's a reason that they would hire you, but before they get there, why they would pick up the book. So on a very basic level, like, if I'm trying to find a relationship, that would be my pain point. I'm single. I want to find a book that's going to help me, find a relationship, right? So I'm going to probably resonate with someone that really understands what it is that I'm dealing with. So, I'm over 40, I'm single, I've never been married, I've never had kids. So the things that I might be dealing with in my particular situation is going to be different than someone who's, fresh out of university, 22 years old. They're going to be having a different kind of set of problems, even though we're both single. So that's what I'm talking about, is that you really want to have them have the experience of, wow, this person's really getting me. And the other thing I'll say about that is that people, especially when they're reading books, and especially nowadays, they're looking for any reason, even though they want to have help and they want to find a solution, they're looking for any reason to kind of bolt, right? And say that this book is not for me. So by doing this ideal reader profile, they get really, really clear and specific about, okay, maybe this is for me and maybe they are talking for me. So if I use that same example that I just used about the relationship thing, if I'm reading a book on relationships and how to find my next relationship, and it's geared towards a millennial or a 20-something, I'm going to be like, oh, they don't know me, they don't know my problems, and therefore they're not going to be the person that I go to solve those problems. So that's, and what I'll say is, if you don't really know, I mean, you've done your outline, but if you're still not necessarily clear about what the book's going to be about, that's perfect. This will help you get clear about that. And again, what I'll say is, same thing I said with the outline, that whatever the first thing is that comes up for you is perfect. A lot of my clients often find that this person already really exists. So if you already have a client base, pick your perfect client, or who's the favorite client that you've ever had to work with, or, if you could wave your magic wand, who would you want reading this book? So that's what you want to create. And then another thing that some of my clients discover is that it's them, right? Their ideal reader is who they were. Often it's, a few years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, before they discovered whatever it is that you're going to be, solving. So in my same example of, before you got married, who were you and what were you dealing with and what were you looking for and what actions did you take to solve that problem, right? So I'm more likely to listen to you because you're on the other side of that, just like people are going to listen to me who are looking to get their books written because I've done it a bunch of times. So I have the solution. So that's what we're creating today. And then the other thing, you know, the other objection I have in doing this exercise is people think like, well, my book is for everyone. And that may be true, but if you're writing to everyone, you're going to end up attracting no one. So again, you will have people that fall on either side of this target reader. And so, you know, you get to say, so you might as well pick the person that you would love to work with and that you would love to have reading your book. And, you know, in some cases, it's true that some of the content, there's some things that won't matter. Like it doesn't matter necessarily if you're male or female, right? So you'll have to kind of be the judge of that. But the purpose of this today is to get you thinking about it and to have you asking the questions so that you can really create one avatar that you will then write to. And the other thing that we'll be taking on is, you know, we only ever write to one person in our books. So this is the person you're going to write to. So with that, I just want to make sure that, I'm just trying to see here what's going on. I can't quite see the chat window. So, I'm just going to make sure that you have your ideal reader template. It should have been emailed to you and you want to open that document up. Okay, so Kathy, I know you're watching us live, so I just want to make sure that you have received the document. So I'm going to type in the chat window, please open up your defining ideal reader document. Oops, I spelled document wrong. Okay. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to do just to make sure if you're listening to the recording after the fact, I just want to make sure that everyone has the document. So otherwise the next 60 to 90 minutes are going to be completely useless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the link and put it up in the chat window. So regardless of whether or not you got the email, that that you've got access to it. So in the meantime, feel free to go get a coffee or something. Okay, so I have the link here, and I am just going to put it up in the window, and then I'm going to put it right here. Okay, so I see Kathy got it and it's open, so we are good to go. Okay, so who's reading your book? Now, you'll notice if you've gone through the document that I start and ask the same questions twice, and it's because it's a bit of a process and you don't always know. So in terms of where we start, it's demographics. So in terms of age, you might have a range. So, you know, it might be 30 to 45. So it's fine as we start the process to just write down what the age is and the age range. And then you want to have gender, employment, and income. So, you know, how this might look is, for my example, I work for the most part, who I target is elite alpha male business owners. So they are over 40. They've are typically serial entrepreneurs, or they've been in business for 5 years or more. Now, there's a reason that I do this. Mostly it's because if I want to write book content with them, if they're a startup company, they don't often have enough case studies and things like that that will really flesh out the book. They don't always have a full and remarkable solution, and they don't always have the level of income that's required to be able to hire me as a private client. So that's why I choose that. And I choose males as well, because typically they are more apt to not want to write the book themselves. There's a couple other reasons, but that's why I target them. So, but when I first started this, I didn't necessarily know that they were over 40. So you might want to write 40 to 55. And depending on what you're writing about, it might be, destined to both male or female. So if it doesn't matter in your case, that's fine. Write them both down. And again, it really, in some cases, their employment may not matter, right? For me, for the most part, for my private clients, they are entrepreneurs or speakers or trainers. But I do also have clients that are retired. I have clients that work full time. That's a different target though. If they're working full time, then there are other, considerations to take care of. And then I have an income expectation as well, again, just because of the level of my private clients and the cost for that is that I don't ever want anyone to hire me that can't afford me for a number of reasons, because it's just stressful, and I don't want to create that level of stress for them either. So I want them to easily be able to afford me. So demographics, age, gender, employment, income. Also want to say if they're married or not. Do they have any kids? I like to get as specific as possible. Is it a boy and a girl? Do they have a boy and a girl? What are the ages of their children? What are the names of their children? And we're just making it up, right? So if you have a particular client already in mind, use them, or it can, like I mentioned, be you 5 years ago or something like that, right? And we really want to kind of paint a picture of what their everyday looks like. So, and we'll get to that a little bit more in the psychographics and things like that. But for right now, write that down. Next is the geographics. So, for the most part, obviously with the book, we will have worldwide distribution, but I want you to start thinking about when the book is out, who are you going to be targeting first and foremost? So you might want to target locally if you're from Calgary, if you live in Brooklyn, do that. Sometimes it's just all of North America, but again, you want to have one person that represents your entire demographic. So write that down now. If you just want to say North America, we can hone it down later on. Okay, psychographics. So the psychographics are, again, this is getting us a specific picture of what your target reader's day-to-day life looks like. So that's why we want to know if they're married and if they have kids and what they're struggling with. So, Janelle, I know you're listening to this after the fact. If you're dealing with pro athletes that are retired from being athletes, what is the main thing that they're struggling with? And I know that we spoke and you said it was around, they don't know how to, they don't know how to relax, right? Or so they're such high achievers that they need this, this permission to rest and that sort of thing. So you're just really getting a sense of like, okay, she's getting up at 5 a.m. And this is what she's doing. This is what her day looks like, right? They're feeding the kids, they're, whatever they are. So Kathy, what is the main thing that they're dealing with and that they're constantly struggling? So you want to know, and this, again, if you're got this as a client already, it's the thing that you hear over and over and over again. Right, so this is really painting the picture, the interests, the culture, the lifestyle, the hobbies, buying history, associations they belong to. Now, the associations they belong to are simply because when we market the book, we might want to market the book at those associations. So if they're professional women and they belong to a professional association, we could find them there. You know, so lifestyle is often, you know, my entrepreneurs are often working 70 or 80 hours a week. They're married. They're often really happily married and hopelessly devoted to their wives and children. So they are often purpose driven. They know exactly why they do what they do. And family is as important to them as running their business. So they have really clear and specific carved out family time, especially on the weekends. So if I were to paint a picture of their lifestyle, it would be that they're on the go all the time. They get up at 5 a.m. Their fitness, you know, they have coaches for everything. So they have a fitness coach, they have a business coach. You know, they are, you know, in mastermind groups. They are on the go all day long. They are learning how to do more with less time. They delegate, and they always make time for their children. So they're busy during the week. In the evenings, though, they're attending their kids' hockey game and going to kids' birthday parties on the weekend. And they really have to work hard to carve out their family time on the weekend. So that is some of the psychographics of my target reader and what their lifestyle looks like. You know, I know, you know, in terms of hobbies and things like that, most of them don't have much spare time, and any spare time they have, they'll spend with their families. And they will sometimes travel. So they'll go to these mastermind events. They will go to events like Traffic and Conversion, where they can get themselves not only in the community, but in front of their clients. But they like to travel less and less, right? So they are a home-based business for the most part, or local, and they want to be close to home. So it takes a lot for them to get on a plane. Most of them have traveled a lot and flown all over the world, either for speaking or for their businesses or to get to events, and they don't want to do that anymore. It takes a lot for them to get on a plane. So that's what it is. Culture, you know, they read a lot. They read a lot of books. They're big into self-improvement. They invest heavily in their personal development. You know, most of them will have done Tony Robbins or Landmark or some sort of course. Most of them will have invested anywhere from $15,000 to $100,000 to participate in mastermind groups so that they can get access to higher level entrepreneurs and higher level thinking. So these are all the psychographics of my ideal reader, my ideal client, actually. So I'm just going to give you some time. And again, whatever pops up is really the perfect answer. And I think you might be surprised to discover that you know more than you think you do about your ideal reader already. I hope so anyways. Okay, so next is technographics. These are, you know, is your ideal reader more likely to own a PC or a Mac? Are they a technology enthusiast or a pessimist? Meaning, you know, if you look at the scale, would they be considered an early adopter? Are they a laggard? Do they kind of, you know, use technology to their benefit? Do they use it in spite of themselves? Like they know that it's a means to an end, but they prefer not to, you know, they prefer to be offline. I think this day and age, these questions are becoming more obvious in terms of, you know, how often, how many hours per day and per week are they online? And when I first developed this 5 years ago, that was different than today. I think for the most part, you know, a lot of us are joined at the hip to our cell phones. You know, we're constantly in available and in constant contact and things like that. But, you know, that may not be the case. So you just want to kind of, you know, maybe they're on all the time. You know, what are they using the internet for? Is it primarily for work? Is it for pleasure? Do they shop online? You know, what's their social media platform of choice? Are they more Facebook? Are they Twitter? Are they none of it? So I can tell you my target client, my Quick Start Alpha male is not on Facebook, right? So me running Facebook ads for him is not going to work. Where they are is at the mastermind groups and at events. So I'm better to find them there than I am to try and do any sort of online marketing. So that's what I know about them. You know, and in the previous section, the psychographics, there's a buying history. So what are some of the things they're buying online? Again, I think that this has become pretty obvious, and that's changing now. Like, you know, are they shopping? Are they buying plane tickets? Are they buying concert tickets? Are they buying everything? You know, maybe they're getting their groceries delivered. Maybe they're not doing any of that because, you know, in my case, the wives are doing it, or they have an assistant or someone that manages their, you know, basic, you know, the kind of the lower level stuff so that they're freed up to work on other stuff. You know, a lot of them are online most of the day, so they, you know, in the downtime try to stay offline, that sort of thing. Yeah, and you know, what are some of the websites they visit? Are they up on the news? Are they, you know, watching TED Talks? Are they watching YouTube videos and cat videos and things like that? So where are they? And again, this will come in handy in the future when you're looking at where you're going to find them, where are you going to promote the book. These are some of the places you want to start. So if your person is on Facebook all the time, then, you know, it would make sense to run Facebook ads when the book comes out, that sort of thing. In my case, it doesn't make sense because they're not on Facebook. Now, if you're going to spend any time in any of these sections, I would say really take the time in the psychographics section because that can be quite robust. You know, one thing we didn't address, are they university educated? Again, in your case, it might not matter, but you know, if you don't know, make something up. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a sample of one of the ideal reader composites that I did with one of my clients. And we'll get to this later, but I asked you to give your target reader a name. So in this case, we called it Bypass Betty. So Bypass Betty is a female, 45 years old, living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's married with children. She's an entrepreneur and a self-help coach who has been in business for 3 years, and she currently makes about $75,000 a year. She is smart, university educated, and has been in sales for over 15 years, and she really knows her stuff. She's 5'6". She weighs 190 pounds. She dresses professionally and makes an effort to present herself well, but nothing too over the top. So I will get to that one later. Betty buys self-help books and business books. She listens to podcasts and radio shows that provide business tips. She is trying to master the ever-elusive task of balancing and streamlining her business life with her family life. She tries to keep weekends and evening opens and isn't always successful at accomplishing this. You know, so she owns a Mac computer. She's not super tech savvy at all, and she knows it. She is using technology quite a bit, but she hires someone to do it for her. She does many teleseminars to promote her business. And we'll get to this a little bit later, but one of the things that Bypass Betty is dealing with, and the book would help her address, is that she's feeling alone in running her business. Like she isn't really part of any community. So she wants to connect with other business owners who are like her, and specifically other business women. There are a lot of pieces about running her business that she doesn't know. She's got some great ideas, but is really interested in what other women have achieved in their businesses. So that's kind of what we created out of this first section for one of my clients. Her primary uses for the internet are checking and replying to emails. She's a heavy social media user, so she uses Facebook dually for personal and business clients, often finds herself getting distracted with social media. And then she's searching for meetup groups for like-minded business owners. So other kind of pain points and things like that, Betty is going to all of these networking events and not really feeling a connection with other business owners, and has this sense of aloneness. So In the next section, we'll get to what's bothering your target reader. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of that's what painting a picture of someone's kind of pain points looks like. And I've got I've got a ton of these, right? So let me see if I can find a different one here. And actually, I think we changed Bypass Spending's name to something else, but we'll get to that in a bit. Okay. So hopefully that's given you enough time to really kind of paint the picture. And if you want to go back after this hangout, after the author advisor call and kind of fill out the psychographics a little bit more, feel free to do that. But now what we're going to do is take these broad general categories and get more specific. So we want to choose now one age and one sex and one occupation and income level that will represent the entire demographic. So I told you earlier, it's fine to kind of start like, okay, 40 to 55 or, that sort of thing. And so now we just want to pick an age, so I just pick 43 as my age and male. And, personal income exceeds $100,000 a year. Business income is often 7 figures and beyond. And again, since you're creating it, you might as well have your ideal, right? So, and it might not matter in your case who's reading the book, and that's fine, right? In terms of their income level and that sort of thing. Okay, and I think I mentioned this early, but it is going to feel counterintuitive, but we want to get clear about who's reading. We want that person to have a name and a face and a real physical description. We want them to have the experience of nodding while they read their book and really feeling understood by you, getting into what they're dealing with and what's not working for them and what's driving them to pick up and read the book in the first place. So what I often say is, pretend that they're sitting across from you. If you're in business and you have a Facebook fan page, that's a good place to start to get an idea of who your demographic might be. So when I was first starting this, I would go to my fan page, and if you click in Facebook, it'll tell you, and it told me at that time when I was doing the retreats and things like that, before I got into this book at the beach, that primarily, my demographic was 70% women. That were between 35 and 50, and so I started there. Now I know that my client base it used to be about 80% male and 20% female. That's changed a little bit. I'm now getting more women hire me, but that's where I started when I had absolutely no idea. Okay, and then you can use the answers that we just made to get more specific. So where it says do this now, just fill in age, sex, occupation, income, education, and then you just want to pick a city or province, country where they are. So typically that's where you live. If it's Calgary or Victoria or Brooklyn or Tampa, like that's that's where I pick. Unless you're specifically targeting or you're trying to get out into a new market or you're trying to break out into the United States, that sort of thing, then put that down. Okay, and then next is physical description. So we're looking at height, weight, general appearance. And this, I don't know, has always seemed weird to me, and it may not always matter, but in some cases, my clients are doctors or chiropractors or something like that, so their weight does matter. One of my clients, for example, deals with women who perpetually have about 15 or 20 extra pounds that they can never seem to lose, right? So in his case, it's specific. The weight might be related to some of the pain points and some of the things that they're dealing with. General appearance also, are they taking good care of themselves? Are they the type of helpers that always put themselves last and, they're not investing in themselves? Like their general appearance may have something to say about some of the pain points and things that they're dealing with. Height may make no difference, but, just play along with me. Now this next section, the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, those are all things that we've already covered: the interests, the culture, the lifestyle, hobbies, buying history, associations they belong to, and technographics. So that may not change just because we're getting more specific and honing it down to one person. Um, but it may. So, there may be one or two associations. I sometimes have clients that are working with more than one demographic. So what I ask is, to do this template for each one of your demographics, right? So right now we're just picking one. And for me, I have a different demographic with my private clients than I do for my writers retreats, obviously, right? Because it's a different type of person that's going to be really inspired by coming and writing their own book for 3 days than the one that actually wants that done for them. So I have an entirely different demographic for that. So the next thing is really, and I would say this is kind of where the golden magic is in the ideal reader profile, is these next 3 questions. So what is bothering your ideal reader right now, and what is causing them pain? So again, there's a reason that would drive them to hire you, and there's a reason that would drive them to pick up the book. There's something that they're dealing with, and they may or may not be aware of it. But just ask yourself what's bothering them right now. So I guess if I take my example of being single, what's bothering me right now is that I'm single, right? And that's how I would say it. And, whoever would have a solution to this problem would probably have much more insight into it than I would, right? Because it's not just that I'm single, it's that I'm over 40 and single and never been married, right? So there's a certain level of like panic there that's now kind of creeping up, because I'm afraid that, oh my gosh, it'll never happen, I'll be alone for the rest of my life, that sort of thing. So that's like a huge pain point. Another huge pain point is that, I moved to Tampa 3 years ago, so I'm really away from my friends and family. So not only do I not have a primary relationship, but I'm really lonely, right? So in the world of what's causing me pain, I would definitely say, the personal relationships and the partnerships are lacking, and I'm lonely, like straight up. Now, do I admit this to everyone? I do, but for the most part, your ideal reader may not quite be aware of it, or they may not be willing to have that conversation with people, right? Or they're not quite there to realizing how bad it is. Like they might be lying to themselves. They might be, I'm just making it up, right? But maybe they're coping in unhealthy ways. Maybe they're coping in healthy ways, right? They're going for a 5-mile run every morning. Maybe they're eating Haagen-Dazs every day. Maybe they're, drinking more than they should, or, I don't know, but there's a way that they're dealing with that pain. You want to write that down. Okay, so if we go back to our bypass Betty example, um, so, her kind of what's her pain points are: she's going to all these networking events and not feeling a connection with other business owners, as I mentioned. What bothers Betty is her unstable income. So some months set her up well financially, but then she finds herself dipping into these profits to compensate for months that she's in the red. So what she really wants is to spend more time with her family. She doesn't want to trade hours for dollars. She really wants a business that can stand on its own when she isn't in the office, and she would like to stop relying so much on her husband's income to get them through the lean months in the business. So that's kind of like what's bothering her, what's causing her pain. And in this case, it matters that she's married because she's relying on her husband's income. So those are details that at first you're like, oh, it doesn't matter if they're married, but it may matter. Okay, so what are his top fears and frustrations, and what is getting him mad or getting him worried? And this is a little bit different than what's bothering them and what's causing them pain, but it's all in the same wheelhouse. you know. So if I take Bypass Betty's example, what she wants, and this is the next question, what does she want? And then what is the outcome that she's really after? And a different way of saying that, or what are her top wants and desires? And my favorite question of this whole thing is, what is she really after versus the end goal that she thinks she wants? Right? So if you take my example, and I'm a little close to it, so it may be rough, but what I think I want is a husband, right? But what I'm really after is, you know, intimacy, vulnerability, connectedness, partnership. Okay, so in Bypass Betty's example, she wants some security in her income. She's tired of riding the sales roller coaster of, you know, good month, bad month again. So what she wants is to relax and not have to work harder or more hours than she did in her day job. That's what she wants. She wants a business that works, and she wants consistency in her income. She wants freedom from having to go back to her 40 plus hours, you know, per week desk job, right? So that's what she wants. She wants weekends off, all of them, and she wants more family time. She also wants to be closer to her husband, and she is ready for the payoff of starting her own business. So I just want you to really take some time here to kind of get inside their head. And again, if this was you, you know, back in the day before you started doing what you're doing now, this should be quite easy for you. It might be disturbingly easy. Okay, and then again, I'll give you more time to kind of go after this, but you know, back to kind of what does she really want and what's the end goal that she thinks she's after. So what Bypass Betty is really after, though, is the quick fix. So we kind of discovered doing this process with my client that she wants that one thing, the big tip, the brilliant trick that she can implement so her sales can be awesome moving forward, and she can bypass any of the deeper work required. So you can guess now why we called her Bypass Betty, is because that's what she's really after, right? I mean, she says, like, yes, I want security, and I'm tired of riding the sales roller coaster, and I, you know, all that. I want weekends off. I don't want to have to go back to my day job. But what she's really after is a quick fix. And it's important to know that so that you can address it in the book, because she may or may not be aware that that's what she's looking for. And if you can call her on that, then she's really going to be like, wow, you know, this author did the work to get to know and call me on my crap. And I'm going to go to her when I need help with this. Okay. So I'm going to give you just a couple more minutes to kind of spend time on this. And if at this point, you know, I don't know, I find when I do this that stuff comes up that I, you know, as I go back, like, oh, you know, their day-to-day life, this is coming up. You know, in some cases, like, she might not be exercising like she should be, or like she would like to be, or, you know, whatever it is. So just write that down. And if the end goal isn't coming up like you think, you know, just put something in the chat window, or you can reach out to me, because it's pretty, sometimes, you know, not always obvious to identify it. Sometimes it is. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you, what's this person's name? So as you've noticed, you know, if there's sometimes some alliteration, and typically the name of your ideal reader is, you know, represents the pain point that they're trying to overcome. So in you know, Bypass Betty's case, it's that she was trying to bypass, you know, doing the work required to actually get to where she wanted to be. I think we changed the name to Motivated Mindy. So that's, you know, you can either identify the pain point or what it is that they're trying to achieve. One of my avatars used to be Retreat Rachel. So who were the people that I wanted attending my retreats? Other names I do, like Quick Start Quincy, because I work with Quick Start alpha males. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I have clients that name their avatars like Bob or Lou or something like that, but I just find that it's catchy in terms of doing that. And then the other thing is that I ask you to find a picture of this person that represents it. Now, I mean, that's a simple kind of a Google search, and you want it to more or less kind of match the physical description that you had them. And I find that doing this really kind of helps make it real. And then I put that picture right into this document. And I've had clients, if you'd rather write it or you draw it yourself and stuff like that, I mean, you can certainly do that. Okay. I'm just pulling up a couple of the other ideal reader profiles that I've done. This particular client is a doctor. So, some of the physical stuff is probably more preeminent than, in some other of my clients. So in his case, Betty is a 44-year-old woman who has a master's degree in education and works as a teacher. Betty has done well for herself, now earns 6 figures plus household income. She's married to Frank, 45, and they have 2 daughters, Matilda, 11, and Martha, 13. Betty and her family live in New York City, where they love the fast pace and energy of the city. So psychographics, Betty is 5'4" and 100. She's slightly overweight and would love to lose another 10 or 15 pounds. Although she's not sick, she struggles daily with lots of small symptoms around her digestive processes. Again, this is really specific for this client. Betty strives to take care of herself. She does not eat garbage, nor does she prepare it for her husband and daughters. Betty prides herself in taking better care of herself than she sees most of her friends doing. She eats well and exercises, although she does not exercise enough. So Betty is adept at Betty tries to get to the gym or work out as often as she can, which looks like 1 to 3 times per week rather than 4 or 5 times per week, which is how often it should be. While she's at the gym, Betty's also not doing the right type of exercise for her body or her weight loss goals. She goes to the gym and walks on the treadmill for 45 minutes, which is not high enough in intensity. She does no strength training. Betty just doesn't push herself in the right way. She's really just maintaining her weight, and she's not gaining, but not really losing either. So she's not making the changes she really wants to make. That's her kind of pain point. Betty likes to take care of herself and her physical appearance. She has her hair and nails done regularly, as well as getting weekly facials. Every morning, Betty gets up at 5 a.m. and meditates for 20 minutes. She gets the girls' things ready for school before getting herself ready for work. She often leaves the house before the girls go to school. Matilda and Martha take the bus to school, which picks them up in front of the garage. They usually have about a half-hour wait for the bus once they've eaten breakfast. Betty was home for the girls for years as they were growing up, and she only recently went back to work 8 months ago once Matilda turned 11. Now, you'll notice this is really specific, and that's awesome, right? And this client was really, really clear about who his target reader and target client are. So Betty enjoys her family life. They stay home together at night. She helps the girls with their homework or drives them around to different after-school activities. On the weekends, Betty plans meals. She can cook, although her husband enjoys cooking as well. And there are times when the family is too busy to cook, so they take shortcuts, choosing processed foods that are quicker to prepare. There are also times when they do a lot of cooking, so it seems to fluctuate and go in cycles throughout the year. They try to cook at home as much as possible, and they very rarely eat out. Technographics, Betty is definitely a technology enthusiast. She owns a Mac and an iPhone, and on her iPhone all the time, making Betty readily accessible to everyone. She's adept at navigating online and does everything online, from booking plane tickets to online shopping to keep up with her social media group on Facebook. Betty is online far more than she should be, although she believes she still has a life beyond her online activity. She's still a soccer mom. She takes care of her kids, is efficient in her job, and takes care of herself. Although Betty will spend time online socially using Facebook, she feels that she doesn't have a lot of time to be online trying to learn new ways or find new resources that will help her take even better care of herself. Betty enjoys being part of an online moms group on Facebook where they all meet to kvetch about their lives, chime in on stuff going on in town, and share gossip and news. It's also somewhat of a networking group, and they share recommendations and resources. So again, in this case, we would want to, find those online moms groups and promote the book there, because that would be an ideal fit for her. So what are her top fears and frustrations? Betty is worried she's never going to find a solution. She's been having these ongoing health issues. She's often wondering what she should eat and why she can't lose the rest of this weight. She's angry about this, and she's also not handling her stress properly. She feels more anxious than depressed, and she's handling the stress by going into high energy mode rather than low energy mode, which causes her to overreact versus, maybe crawl into a hole. So because Betty's feeling anxious, which is this first stage of stress, she's more likely to crash instead of fight. So this isn't a personal choice. It's the, okay, so he gets into what's going on here. She's also feeling frustrated. She's lacking intimacy with her husband. They're not communicating effectively about it, which is adding to the problem. And part of her health issues, she's having these digestive issues. So that may be a reason why she's not as close and intimate with her husband as she'd like to be. They haven't yet made the connection that their emotional disconnect and their lack of attraction or feeling attractive is related to their digestive health. So that's one of the things he's going to address in the book. Betty doesn't think that her husband eats as healthy as she does and doesn't take care of himself as well as she does. And then we go into what's bothering her right now, what's causing her pain. She's been experiencing these chronic digestive issues, food sensitivities, food IBS issues, that sort of thing for years, and no doctor can put a name on it. So she doesn't really realize it's a digestive issue since it manifests itself as more of an emotional issue. So Betty's been to a specialist. They suggest her symptoms are chronic pain or chronic emotional issues. And at one point, Betty even went to a psychiatrist because she was told she was crazy and started to believe herself. So you can see here that they don't necessarily know what the problem is, but you do. So this is a really great example about how specific and how helpful that will be when writing the book. So the problem is that although Betty has plenty of minor symptoms, she doesn't really have a disease. At least 60% of her symptoms fill up an entire page of nothing, right? So it's not only Betty's digestions that's presenting, it is her stress level, her lifestyle choices, and her emotional reactivity. The digestion issues she's experienced are simply a theme connecting all the symptoms. And the problem is that Betty's been so busy with other things that she's ignored the symptoms for a long time. And what he means when he says at least 60% of her symptoms fill up an entire page of nothing is her symptoms are aches and pains, low back pain, chronic neck tension, headaches, shoulder pains, knee pain. So it's not a specific thing. It's just kind of, she just doesn't feel good. So right now, they'll often come to him experiencing headaches and low back pain, even more than normal. And then Betty's feeling frustrated by the intensity of the symptoms. So even though it's been bugging her for years, she's really noticing this pain now and eager to do something to change it. So she's also now at the point where she thinks these aches and pains are normal and isn't realizing how they're impacting her daily life in subtle ways. So she's been trying to treat her symptoms via diet. She and the family, all have tried this gluten-free diet, and she felt better for a bit, but it wasn't sustainable for her lifestyle. So she feels frustrated and can't find a solution to this. She also doesn't want to take medication, although she doesn't know what else to do. So despite her doing so, Betty's taking medication. Sometimes the meds do make a difference, but they're only solving the problem acutely and are not a long-term solution. So although Betty understands that medication should be used as a tool to keep her functioning while she makes lifestyle changes, she's really not willing to make all the lifestyle changes recommended. So things like committing to a gluten-free diet, doing targeted exercise, drinking enough water, sleeping, meditating, brushing teeth, being nice to people, so kind of taking care of the frame of her body overall. and making sure that the physical stresses of life aren't weighing her down. She knows that that's what she's supposed to do, and she's not really willing to do that. So what Betty wants most of all is to be pain-free. So back to this question is like, what's the outcome that she's really after? That's it. She wants to be pain-free. Second to this, Betty wants to lose 15 pounds, and she really just wants to feel better. So she would like to be alleviated of moodiness, wants more intimacy and stronger relationships with both her husband and her kids. You know, she's a high achiever. She wants to go after like straight A's on this, you know, checklist that she saw at the doctor's office. She wants to set goals and build new habits. You know, Betty's doctor wants her to think about her relationships, not just at home, but at work with her friends. How does that play into her habits, you know? And so, you know, and then there's more on that, right? So the book will address all of these things, get her to see what she's not seeing. Like all of these symptoms are actually, you know, related to your digestion, the intimacy with your husband, and in your personal relationships. Like that is why we do this, so we can get really clear and specific about what are we going to write about that will address it. Now, this doctor happens to be a chiropractor. So the great thing about this is you wouldn't think that all of this can be alleviated by a chiropractor, but it can, right? So that's the thing that his target clients and target readers don't understand. So, so that's one example. And then back to our bypass Betty. We did some conclusions for that client in terms of, you know, what we want the book to address for her. You know, because we've determined that she's after this quick fix, and she wants that, you know, big tip or brilliant trick that can fix it. So, you know, conclusions for her is that, you know, Bypass Betty has paid her dues in her working life. She's consistently kicked butt for other people. She has a good start in her own business and is proud of those big money months. Right? She's ready to have every month be a big money month, though she might not say this out loud. She's fulfilled by her work, so it's not as much about the money for her as it is about the viability and consistency of her income. She's ready to understand what else is out there to help her be successful, sustainable business owner, and also permit her to be with her husband and kids. So the bad news for Betty is that there really is no one thing that will fix her business or improve it overnight. There's no magic wand, and the work for her to do is to go within and figure out what is stopping her from dominating in sales. So any tips that the book can address around money mindset, how she can get more sales, how she can create this balance and stability for her business and feel empowered for herself will carry a lot of weight and credibility with the reader. Including tips and tricks will give her access to realizing the deeper work required to create the end result she's really after. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is really kind of do that work that I just identified in terms of, now that we know what she doesn't know or what he doesn't know, is like, what is the angle that the book can take? What is the solution that you can provide your target reader that she doesn't know, or he doesn't know, he doesn't know? So that's really the ideal reader profile in a nutshell. And what I would request of you at this point is, if you need more time, you know, there might be things coming up, is that you continue to add to these. And my request is that you mail this to me once you're done it, so that I can take a look at it before we ever get started. Now, the good thing about this is that it's a living, breathing document. And what I like about having it created is that I share this document with anyone else that's involved in the book process. So I share it with the graphic designer, because the cover artist the cover page will depend on who the target reader is, right? So if I'm targeting a quick start alpha male entrepreneur over 40, that's going to be a different book cover than if I'm targeting a 23-year-old millennial female, or, so they will have specific colors and designs and things like that they can use based on your ideal reader profile. I share it with the editor so that they're up to speed. I definitely share it with anyone involved in the marketing. And then, as you write the book, you may discover like, oh, you know what, I thought their pain point was this, but it's actually something else. So You know, again, living, breathing document, and, you know, you want to share it with everyone. And then the other thing is you obviously want to share it with me, because that's going to inform the type of language you use, the choices you use in terms of what information to include. You know, if you're, say, writing a real estate book or something, and you're targeting someone that's been in real estate for 20 years, there's a certain level of language that you would use with them, and you wouldn't have to explain things to them because they're not, you know, in startup mode, they're not brand new to the industry. So if I've been in business for 20 years, you know, you're going to speak with me differently than if I'm just starting out. Just like if I'm talking to someone who's already written 20 books versus someone who's writing their first book, the person who's written 20 books is going to get frustrated with me trying to explain some basic fundamentals of book writing. They already know that. So in that whole idea, getting back to, they're looking for a reason to bold and, you know, like, oh, this won't work for me. You want to take that away from them, right? And that's one of the ways that we do it. And the other thing I always say too is that this will then, just as it hits home for some people, it won't be a fit for other people. But the great thing about that is that you don't, you know, they'll self-select. So you don't have to be around and spend any of your time figuring out whether they'll be a fit, because they'll do that for themselves. So there will be some people that say this book is not for me, and that's fine, right? Because you don't want them as clients. But ultimately, the ones that really like, this book was written specifically for me, they're going to become your raving fans. And then they're going to come with a certain level of, you know, base knowledge and information about who you are. You're going to share your personal story. They're going to feel really heard and understood by you. And that is the type of clients that we want all day long, right? And then they're going to recommend it to other people. Like, listen, this book changed my life. So that's really the ideal reader profile in a nutshell. Again, take as much time as you need to fill this out, but please have it sent to me, preferably within a week's time. So if you can have it sent to me a week before the writer's retreat, that would give me time to review it. And if I have any questions, I can have time to take a look at it. But if you're listening to us after the live recording, please make sure that you email it to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat window. It's frontrowseat@gmail.com. I think you all have it, just in case you don't. And I will put it up here as well in the Google Hangout. So email. Okay, and this is great. Now, next week we have our author advisor team call. It's also on Thursday, May 5th. It's also at 11:30 p.m. or a.m. Eastern. And what I'm going to request is that we have it be more interactive, because I want to be able to talk to you guys. And if you have questions, I want to be able to answer them right on the call. So I'm going to send you a link for the Hangout so that you can be on the Hangout with me and not just listening. So I will update you with that in the next week. Obviously, if you have any questions in the meantime as we prepare for the writers camp, please reach out. And next week, what I had thought we would do is just have an open call. So if you have any questions or things that you're wanting to kind of attend to before we get to the retreat, that's your opportunity to ask me. And the other thing that I like to have people prepared and coming to the retreat with is their author bios and their book synopsis. So, you know, you want to have that ready, because we will use it for about the author, and we'll use it for the back page, the book synopsis for the back cover. So those are things that I like to have prepared, because I really want to have you set up so that those 3 days that we're in New York City are spent specifically to make sure that the first draft of your book gets written. So if we have all of these elements in place, then you're really set up for success. So that's our 60 minutes. I will see you next Thursday, May 5th, same time, same place, and I'll send a link so that I can actually see you and speak with you and answer your questions live. So we'll talk to you then, and I look forward to seeing your ideal reader profiles, and I hope you come up with some fun names for them, because that's my favorite part. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.